Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Warm Weather Fans, the Sun Belt podcast. We are in full swing with our 2025 Sun Belt team previews. Once again, back with Zeke Palermo and Matt Miguez to talk over today the Troy Trojans. And I don't want to step on this episode early, but their quarterback leaving to go back up Arch Manning at Texas is unfortunate for them. But anyway, starting off, Zeke, how's it going?
I've been better, actually. Behind the scenes info. This comes right after we recorded our episode with Aikman Chambers and previewed the App State episode. It was great to have Aikman on. He's been a good friend of the show and always has an open invite. But in the meanwhile, I had my eye on the U.S. men's national team game against Mexico. Yeah. U.S. goes up for 1-0 within like 4 minutes. Mexico ties it and then wins it in like the 78th. Very disappointed. Christian Pulisic, I hope you had a great summer off, buddy, because could have used you out there.
That's why soccer doesn't matter in America. Matt, what's up?
Death, taxes, the American outlaws letting you down. But somehow we still throw on our jerseys and support. Look, man, life. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Life is a little weird right now. I talked about it earlier this week. I'm jobless. I'm a bum. I sit around all day playing video games. I've logged over 400 hours on College Football 25 over the last year. 26 comes out this week. Thank the Lord. Excited that we're talking football. I mean, the season's 6 weeks away at this point? It's right around the corner.
Matt, I do have a question about your college football 26 EA Sports College Football 25 experience. You posted a TikTok the other day of a corner named Matt Miguez. Yeah, taking it to the crib for Tennessee. I couldn't help but notice that he was perhaps racially incompatible with how I see you today.
No.
So what's going on?
He wasn't the wrong skin color.
Well, there are no wrong skin colors. First of all, let's get that out of the way. There's no such thing as a wrong skin color.
We might have to cut this.
we might have to start over. Okay, no, that's not shit.
Matt's digging himself a hole.
Shit.
Hey, let's talk about some football, yeah?
All right. So Troy had a weird season last year, much like this discussion went real weird, real quick. All right. I don't even really know how to transition this. Troy was a football team that played football last year, and they were not good early in the season. They didn't really know who they wanted to be their quarterback. They started the season, 1-3 with losses to FBS powerhouses Nevada, Memphis, and Iowa. I don't really blame them for the Iowa loss, but Nevada wasn't a good football team. I don't know what they were doing, meandering around with them. But they did seem to kind of pick up some momentum, namely after the Arkansas State game loss by beating Coastal, Georgia Southern, and Southern Miss. So they won 3 out of their last 4 games, which was something to hang their hat on. But one of the things that I mentioned at the top was it seemed like after a period of uncertainty at the quarterback spot that they finally had settled on Matthew Caldwell. Unfortunately, that NIL money is just so sweet that now he would rather go play behind Arch Manning, aka not play unless injury strikes, than start at Troy and be the incumbent, probably unchallenged starter. So, with that said, we're back to the Goose Crowder, Tucker, Kilcrease corner. I don't know what you call it. It's not a good place to be. It wasn't last year. And frankly, that quarterback situation combined with how timid they were, it felt like in play calling at times last year, was not a good recipe for success. And the thing was, Caldwell kept their head above water a lot of times with a lot of the decision making and things like that. And so to kind of go back to Goose Crowder or Tucker Gilcrease is going to be a big kind of harsh dose of reality. Zeke, do you have any large kind of overarching thoughts about Troy before we jump into this here episode?
I think, as a lot of teams in the conference are in the middle of a regime change or some sort of rebuild. I think that's a really important perspective to keep. This is not the Troy team that, as recently as 2 years ago or even last year, we saw real good splashes of them being so offensively, but defensively dominant. This is a different regime. We're in year 2 under Gerad Parker, who had I'd say a pretty good, as expected, first year. I know I was probably a little higher on them preseason last year, just hoping that some of the old regime would spill over more than it truly did. But the quarterback is a big question. The rushing game is a real question. You lose a 1,000-yard rusher in Damian Taylor, who kind of came out of nowhere. You lose Devontae Parker, who was a 1,000-yard receiver as well. So you're really looking to the defense to return to what it was 2-3 years ago, where, I mean, there were few teams, not just in Group of 5 football, but across the country, that was putting up defensive numbers like Troy was in terms of points allowed and, really putting good pressure on quarterbacks. So that's the direction I need to see Troy go in this year if they want to expedite this rebuild under Gerad Parker.
Matt, do you have any like large scale thoughts before we jump into position groups? Or
I'm just really interested to see, how they rebound, right? Because obviously you had the great 2 years of success under, Jon Sumrall. You go back to back, and then Jon Sumrall leaves. You bring in Gerad Parker, who had a really good resume at Notre Dame as an offensive coordinator. And, they struggled out the gate, like we talked about off the top, and only managed 4 wins. The cliche is, the biggest jump is from year 1 to year 2. So how big is that jump for the Troy Trojans with an experienced quarterback like Goose Crowder and Tucker Gilcrease? Now, granted, neither put on a great performance, right? I don't know that it's a movie you'd want to watch again, but it's the 2 choices that you have. So I'm really interested to see if those air quotes here movies got better, and how big that jump is in year 2 for Gerad Parker and the Troy Trojans.
now, I will say, in Gerad Parker's defense, the defection of Matthew Caldwell came late. He only transferred May 5th. So it wasn't like they had a ton of opportunity to go into the portal and find somebody to replace them. Right. But like you said, I'm going to be honest before we even get started. I don't really have super high hopes for the Goose Crowder, Tucker Gilcrease experiment, whatever you want to call it. We saw it enough last year, and the fact that it frankly didn't work and it didn't look all that great. A lot of the initial concerns I had about Parker were at the forefront before Caldwell took over, and those kind of seemed to subside as the season went along, largely because they had found someone who could at least kind of hold serve at the quarterback spot. But then by the end of the season, by this season, you're like, all right, we're back to square one, like we were at the beginning of last year. And frankly, like Zeke said, you have even less talent on paper than you did last year. You got some pieces on the defensive side of the ball. That's awesome. You've got Trey Cooley, a running back transferring in from Georgia Tech, who's going to presumably take over for Damian Taylor. Other than that, it's like, Peyton Higgins, Trey Taylor from Coastal. Like, there's a lot of like, fine, whatever, you know.
A name that really jumped off the page about this Troy team from the offensive side, and part of this is just because of my ties to the team he played for most recently, was Ra Thomas. Ultimately, did not play. Domestic abuse stuff that I can't recall how it folded out, but accusations alone are, enough to make you cringe. But that was a guy that coming into Georgia when he was a freshman was supposed to be, or I guess, was it anyway, when he was at Georgia was like a real dynamic guy. He's 6'2", 200, so he has a really interesting build. He's tall enough to get the jump balls, but he's also slim enough to play some sort of burner type role. Ra Thomas is something on the offense that I'm really keeping an eye on. But obviously, character issues that takes precedent over pretty much everything. But if he's playing, I then assume that it's been cleared, at least in courts.
Plus, at least if you just want to look at it from just a football strict perspective, even if Ra Thomas is great, do you feel confident that Goose Crowder or Kilcrease are going to get him the ball on a regular basis? Because
that's the big question, right? Doesn't matter if you've got Randy Moss on one side and Calvin Johnson on the other, and you've got Antonio Gates running down the middle. It doesn't matter if you're looking at guys who couldn't cut it on a team that last year was pretty poor by an offensive perspective outside of the rushing game. So another name, I think, because we're an all names team, advocates here. Another guy to look at is Mojo Dortch. That's a pretty sick name. Don't know if there's any relation to Greg. He's the only other Dortch I've ever heard of.
I'm preferent to Roman Mothershed as my wide receiver name pick. I like that a lot. Ra Thomas is a good name too.
It's a good collection, and with Goose throwing it, it's like, hey man, Troy could show up a lot on our postseason all names team. Who's to say?
Yeah, I don't really doubt that. Matt, do you remember what it was like last year before Caldwell came in? Was there anything that you saw from the pre-Caldwell experiment that you feel like could have worked itself out or will work itself out this year? Because to me, a lot of what I saw was it was a combo of incompetent quarterback play, but then also, like I said, just a lack of aggression from decision making at the head coaching spot when it came to like going for it on fourth downs, not kicking easy field goals, and maybe going for it on 4th and goal and trying to score. Things like that were really lacking, especially early in the season. So do you kind of attribute that to kind of early season jitters with a new head coach, or do you think that's going to be something that's going to hinder them this year too?
No, yeah, I think you're spot on. I think Gerad Parker, obviously being a first-time head coach, probably had a shorter leash both on his quarterbacks and on his playbook. Probably didn't want to open it up too much. Obviously want to get some team chemistry built in there before you start getting too crazy. And I think it was one of those things where both Kilcrease and Crowder, they made some mistakes, and coaching staff had a short leash. And Matthew Caldwell, look, I think both of these guys are talented players. I think there's a reason that they're playing football at the Division I level, right? They have something to provide. However, I just haven't seen enough from either one of them to really feel confident, not only in either quarterback, but also in Gerad Parker as a head coach. I just don't have the confidence that he's going to be able to turn this around, strictly because I haven't seen it, right? The sample size is not there. I think that getting 5 starters back from the offense last year is a big step. Zeke, you talked about Ra Thomas, who's a incredibly talented football player. He's had his off the field issues, and I think that's been well documented. But can he put that behind him and focus on football? And if that's the case, I think you have a dynamic playmaker to make things easier for the quarterback. And if you have that along with some good coaching, then you never know what could transpire. But right now, I just don't have confidence because I simply don't know.
Yeah, so basically the name of the game is just pure uncertainty. And frankly, like we've been beating this drum, but going back to what started last year for Troy, frankly doesn't have the ingredients to me of like a team that's going to be truly very good in the West. In like a West division that I think is pretty good with Louisiana, Southern Miss, Zeke. I'm not even joking when I'm like Texas State is in that mix. Like, there are some good teams in the West that can really, maybe South Alabama gets it together and does some things. It's not a good division for you to just kind of be like, we're just figuring it out. Like it's not, it isn't going to work like doing that. So they're going to have to either kind of take it on the chin this year and say, hey, last year in 26, they're going to have to look at this year, go, hey, it didn't work. Let's go ahead and wipe the slate clean, start over. Or like Matt said, they're going to have to take some real steps forward, especially with like the quarterback position. Frankly, offensive line, we could go ahead and break into that. You get two starters back in Elijah Prather and Eli Russ, who played significant time at the left tackle and left guard spots. You do get a transfer over from App in Garner Langlo, I think is how you pronounce it, at the right tackle spot. I don't know. Right guard, you get a junior college transfer, and then senior you get or at center rather, you get a freshman incoming at that spot, presumably, according to Phil Steele. So there's a couple spots that seem solidified, but there are some real holes here too that could be a real problem for them.
I think I really like this group from an experience standpoint. Two starters back, both on the left side of the line. That's the more important line. Blocking, for whether it's Crowder or Kilcrease's blind side. That's real important. You get guys who have played before on the right with Henry and Langlo. The crux is obviously going to be having a freshman run the center. We talked about this last week, Brian, with Alec Johnson at Georgia State, who is a returning starter. He was a freshman last year, sophomore now, running that middle spot on the offensive line. That can either be a huge sign that you have got a future star on your hands, or it just means that you are so depleted that you're looking for anyone to fill that gap. I'll put my hand up, blind spot. I don't know anything about Paul Bowling. Sorry, I didn't watch him in high school. My bad. So we'll find out what that transpires and how that looks like. At 6'4", 300, he's already, he's a big boy. He's already, college size. So that's not a concern. We'll find out if he's got the mental chops to keep up and to, make the slides and, calls, whatever. But as we talked about last week, Brian, that is either a great sign for your team or a very, very bad sign for your team. Yeah.
And I want to add to that because you bring up Paul Bowling being a freshman. If it doesn't work out, I do like the depth that they have behind him. You've got two guys with starting experience. Tyler Cappy had 2 starts last year for Troy, and then Vyson Lang comes in. He's had 9 starts in the last 2 seasons over at Tennessee. So you've got some really good experience behind him on that depth chart. If it doesn't work out with the freshman, but like you said, on the chance that it does, and he turns out to be, just a ready-made college football player, Troy's got the anchor of their offensive line set for the next 3 years, at least.
If they put Vyson Lang in with the size that Matt Henry has, they have a massive 2 guys at the offensive line that are both 340. So if you want to try to get through the offensive line against 2 guys that are combined 680 pounds, good luck. Because frankly, I'm not going to tell you not to, but I wouldn't do it if I was you. But But yeah, so we'll see how that all pans out. It is good that they have those two returning starters plus the transfer from App, who played in 10 games last year at the right tackle spot. So you got a little bit of continuity in theory, but we'll see kind of how that all plays out. And frankly, is Trey Cooley or Jordan Lovett or Jarris Williams, any of these guys going to make a difference at the running back spot? Because frankly, in years past, whether it be Kamani Vidal or Damian Taylor, like Troy's backbone has been a little bit like App during its most successful seasons, where it's run the ball, play defense, throw the ball as necessary, but use the running game to kind of preempt whatever may be happening from a passing perspective. And I think it was okay last year, but they're really going to need to find somebody who's a difference maker at the running back spot, because frankly, I don't see it out of the quarterbacks. So you got to do something on offense. And I don't think letting Goose Crowder uncork it 50 times a game is really the answer. So that's the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, Zeke, are there any pieces that really stand out to you on the defensive side of the ball that catch your eye?
I mean, yeah. First of all, it's Jordan Stringer, playing out of the linebacker spot. Is their most leading returning tackler and he did that last year as a sophomore. So that sophomore to junior jump is always big. I'm really excited to see what he does this upcoming season. I'm still interested to see how this defense develops, because you go from Jon Sumrall, who was a defensive guy. Yes.
He was a linebacker background.
Right. And so then you switch over to Gerad Parker, whose offense is offensive coordinator, and you've entirely changed the tune of kind of who's to speak to their actual roster construction strategy. But that gives you the inclination that, Gerad Parker is going to favor the offense. So I'm really still curious to see what the post Sumrall defenses look like, because they had some really, really good performances last year. I'm looking at the ULM game where, granted it's ULM, but allowed only 13, right? 25 to South Al, 12 to, again, it's Florida A&M. But you're holding the team to 12 points. Not a lot, that's a difficult thing to do. There were some stinkers, 51 to Louisiana, Matt. You'll remember that game, 38 to Texas State. So they had some real stinkers. But I think this team, more than anything, more than finding like a stud, finding a guy through the portal, or finding a guy like Stringer or Devin Lafayette was a guy who played well in some sort of rushing role, pass rushing role for them as well last year. More than seeing improvement for those guys, let's find some more identity. Let's reestablish the defensive identity of this team as they try to pick up the remains of what was 2 years ago.
Matt, I have a question for you. Looking at it on paper, to me, I think for them to run a three down lineman on the defensive side of the ball with three guys that are in the 270 to 280 range seems a little light. Do you think that too? Because I mean, like, we made the joke that if you sub in one of the guys on their offensive line, you've got two guys that are 680 pounds combined. And then look at the defensive side of the ball. It's like, are Elijah Davis, Luis Medina, and Talik Robbins at 280-ish going to be able to hold up against offensive lines in the Sun Belt?
So I guess, so I agree with you. I think that is awfully small to run a three down front. Now, is it one of those situations? And I ask this because I haven't watched a lot of Troy defense. I don't know the skill sets, particularly of these three guys. Can they beat a Sun Belt offensive line with speed? Is that the objective that Gerad Parker's going? Maybe they can get a quick first step and get through the line before blocks are set or whatever. That's going to be the question. I don't love a three down set when you don't have a guy that is at least 300. Now, if you want your two guys on the outside to be 275, 280, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But my guy in the middle has got to be 310, swallowing up two blocks at a time. Like that, that has to be how it is. And so yeah, I mean that is a little concerning, but and again, maybe it's one of those situations where after the Memphis game, they look at it and go, okay, a 3 down front's not working. Like let's try something else. It's going to be an interesting question that's going to get answered pretty quickly because, and obviously, we'll get into the schedule in a little bit, but it is not an easy one for Gerad Parker and the Trojans.
No, I would be interested to see if they are married to what seems to be like a 3-3-5 type front. Frankly, if you get through a couple games next season and they're running opposing running backs are just absolutely running wild on your defense with like we said, like 3 kind of light guys in the 3 down set, like that might be a real area for concern. And my question would be, could they even change from that? Like, is it so ingrained in how they're coaching that they have to run with that? Or can they call an audible if they need to and say, hey, let's maybe move to like a 4 down lineman just to try to get some help, containing the run here. So we'll have to see. Zeke mentioned Jordan Stringer, the linebacker, coming back. They also return Stephen Catledge, who played in 11 games last year, only had 22 tackles, but has experience. Devin Lafayette, who I think plays a little bit of like an old school rover type role, where it's like he's a part-time safety, part-time linebacker that will come down and help support the run with, again, three down linemen, 3 linebackers.
Yeah, I want to jump in on Lafayette just because I know a little bit about him because I saw him a little bit in high school, so I followed him. I said earlier that he comes in as a pass rush. That was not totally accurate, a little bit of a misspeak. He does play like a traditional box safety type role, and that excites me in this offense that if they're playing like this 3-3-5, I love safeties in a 3-3-5, guys that are real tweeners. And again, I'm only hopping on this because this is one of the guys on this defense that I really know the name and I really know his game. That's a name that I really excites me.
Well, Zeke, they've got to be willing to come down in the box and mix it up.
Matt made a face.
Damn, Zeke, I didn't know you had rhymes like that, bro.
No, I know his name and I know his game. I'm a poet.
You do.
I didn't even recognize it.
Oh, I love that. But yeah, you're exactly right. Talking about the a tweener safety in a 3-3-5, he is the definition of a tweener. I mean, 6'2", 195. That dude's gonna fly around the football field. And that's huge. You've got a guy that can blitz the quarterback. You've got a guy that can drop into coverage, and that's a really nice piece to have for a 3-3-5, exactly like Zeke was talking about. So I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on him this year. He had 6 tackles for a loss last year, and can he add to that number in 2025 as like you said, a guy that can really do both very well. It's going to be interesting to see.
And then specifically in the secondary, it seems to be a pretty new, unexperienced unit, with the exception of Justin Poe, who played 12 games and started at strong safety for them last year. Did has 67 tackles, 4 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. But some of the other guys, whether it be Levine, Jaquez White, Zeke, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy from Georgia, but this David Daniel, I don't even know what his last name is. Sivanea? I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
David Daniel. I have maybe a story for you guys off pod. David Daniel went to a high school maybe 3 miles down the road from where I went to school. We're roughly the same age. I've got a story for you guys after the pod about that one.
Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to that. All right. So that is the offense and defense. Let's turn the page and get to the schedule, which, as Matt alluded to, I believe it was Matt, that it's not an easy one.
No.
So their win total preseason is 5.5, according to the DraftKings Sportsbook. If Caldwell was still here, I may dabble in the over with the Goose Crowder Kill Crease jumbo package. I'm out. I'm good. You can
See,
give me the
I've
under.
got. I mean, obviously, there's situations where you win games that you're not projected to win, but looking at the schedule like we like to do, I see 4 wins.
Yeah.
I see
So
4 wins.
which 4?
Nichols.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give them a win on the road at Buffalo.
Okay.
ULM and
Sure.
Georgia State.
Okay.
I've got those 4.
See, I think Georgia State could beat them, to be totally honest.
Oh, 100%.
I think
That's one of
could.
those toss-up games.
Mm-hmm.
I think South Al's interesting as well. That's a
true.
you
They
know a
lost a
rival.
lot.
Yeah, that's a rivalry game. In Troy, I think that's a winnable game. Arkansas State yet to be seen, but I'm with Matt. I think 4 feels like a really comfortable number to sit at. With they might win 5 games, but anything beyond 5 is really pushing it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, let's put it totally in perspective. Last year, when they didn't play Caldwell, and even when he came in spurts, they started the season 1-7. So I can't look at the turnaround they had at the end of the season and go, oh, that was totally independent of who was starting at the quarterback spot. They would have done that with anybody. I can't say that. So frankly, I'm going to say this is another rough year for Gerad Parker. I think with it being another rough season, I think next year is going to be a really make or break season if this goes the way that everybody kind of foresees it. Like I said, I don't exactly blame him for Caldwell leaving so late kind of in the cycle, but also how many 4-win seasons do you get before people in Troy are like, get him out of here? Chip Lindsey, we said Chip Lindsey wasn't a very good coach before Jon Sumrall took over. He was like 500-ish, like borderline 500 every year, and they were like, get him out of here. Gerad Parker turning in 2 like sub 6-win seasons is not gonna cut it in Alabama. So they're gonna have to figure some things out. I don't really know how many other ways there are to slice it. Like, things have to get better and fast. So
Yeah, I think he's got 3 years. I think that's a fair number. Obviously, it depends on how this year goes, right? If you go 4-8 again, year 3, you probably have to jump up to 7 to stay around. But yeah, this year is going to be really important because if it's a total catastrophe, if they're even worse than last year, say they go 3-9 or 2-10, he might be putting his house up for sale in December.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a team that I feel like there are a lot of questions, but I think outside of the quarterback room, we at no point were like, man, this really sucks. There are questions about the running back room, and Brian, this feels like up to this point, this is what preview number 4 for us. This feels like the fewest wins matched with the team that we've been the nicest about. Like, it's that in that weird quadrant of the compass where this doesn't feel like it should be another 4 or 5 win team. I think this is, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of my rear, but I have internal optimism for this program that even though the 4 or 5 wins look like it, on paper, this feels like a team that should be better. Maybe I'm speaking out of my rear here, though, but that's the gut that I'm feeling right now.
Well, so Phil Steele in his little, I was reading the little write-up blurb kind of in the preview forecast or whatever for the upcoming season. I don't know if he had previously had like in a very late edit, like Caldwell slotted in and then he transfers out and he didn't have time to change it. But he said he has them going bowling. And I was just like, I'm struggling to find 6, Phil. Like, I don't know if you go, I don't know if he goes in and like tallies up the teams that he has making bowls and which ones he doesn't, but it feels like a lot of them he's just like, yeah, they're going to make a bowl game. And I'm like, that doesn't happen for every single team. Every single team doesn't just walk to a bowl game every single season. Like that's not how it works. So I'm interested to see where his 6 that he had pinned were. Like, I don't know how he feels about Old Dominion. I don't know how he feels about because we frankly we haven't started doing research on some of these teams, but it's like, okay, like you said, ULM, fine. South Al, maybe. But like, yeah, you're not beating Clemson. You're not beating Memphis. You're probably not beating Louisiana. You're probably not beating Arkansas State. Where are the wins coming from?
I think we're going to run into this problem with Arkansas State as well, where it's going to be tough to really point at many wins. I don't know what their cross division and out of conference looks like, but the balance is so heavily in the West this year.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, a little deviating from Troy, but you've got Southern Miss, which we anticipate to be near the top of the West. You've got Louisiana, which is perpetually in the top of the division.
Mm-hmm.
Texas State, say what you will about them, is probably good for 6 wins, right?
Yeah.
This is a really top-heavy division, but it's also where all the power is in the conference. And I don't know. I think that's interesting. I don't know how that compares to historical years or historical trends in the conference. You guys would have better perspectives on that than I, but I think that's a really interesting kind of dynamic to have. And it all comes back to just having this, frankly, antiquated division system in the conference.
So what's going to be interesting, and before the season starts, I would like to have a special episode where we just talk about expansion and realignment and whatnot. I kind of have a bold take. I think the Sun Belt's going to end up with 16 teams before it's all said and done. Because one big draw or one big con, I should say, to adding Louisiana Tech is that would put 3 teams in the state of Louisiana. And a lot of people aren't happy about that, and I get it. So how do you expand it even further out to kind of level the playing field? You attack the East Coast again. Mm-hmm. You go get yet another school from the Carolinas or Virginia or Kentucky. There's a lot of pieces here to this that's really going to take a little while to kind of to settle. But no, when it's all said and done, I think 2 things are going to happen. I think number 1, the Sun Belt's going to get rid of divisions, and then number 2, I think you're going to have 16 teams.
Who do you think else? Who else do you like joining? I mean, we're just spitballing here, so this is by no means any.
So off the cuff, I think Louisiana Tech's a lock.
Mm-hmm.
ECU,
I think they're in. I think ECU is a coveted piece to this. I think the Sun Belt would love to add ECU if they could. Now for the third team, it's interesting. Middle Tennessee's got some history in the Sun Belt. Could they have interest in coming back? Western Kentucky had a nasty exit from the Sun Belt, but it was 10 years ago. So, can maybe bygones be bygones and they return to the conference? Another team, Liberty. We say it every time conference realignment rolls around. Liberty has proven that they are better than Conference USA. So
frankly, to me, there's no team I would want to see get a Power 5 bid more than Liberty, just because their fans seem insufferable. No, their fans. Yeah.
I want to see them get exposed, man. I'm not a Liberty believer. I'm ready for them to I don't know, get proven as fraudulent. I'd love to see them go P5.
But I really think Louisiana Tech is in. I think it's just a matter of when and not if on when that news gets dropped. And then you brought up ECU. I think that they're the next piece of the puzzle because I mean they're good at so many things, right? They have a decent football program. They've got a really good baseball program that would add insurmountable value to an already really good baseball conference.
Yeah.
And then they're pretty good on the basketball court. So, all the way around, I think they provide a ton to what the Sun Belt Conference wants to do.
Do you guys ever think that Coastal's baseball program is kind of sitting around being like, where's everybody else at? Is it just us? Does anybody else want to step up and participate?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that.
All right. So as we wrap up here, that is our Troy preview. Very, very tempered, mild expectations for the Trojans this year and year 2 under Gerad Parker. Matt, let everybody know where they can find you on socials, and then we'll kick it over to Zeke.
You can find me on social media, as always, at Miguez Matt.
Yeah, and I'm on same place as he is, at Zeke Palermo, ZekePalermo.
Yeah, as always, feel free to email the show. If you want to talk about conference alignment, we'd love to have people's takes.
Oh, yeah,
whoever they think like should be joining, who they think should be kept out. Let's really gatekeep here. Like I really want to, not in my backyard, really NIMBY it. So it'd be interesting to see what people have to say about that. But like Matt said, it feels like ECU and Louisiana Tech are just kind of like, here you go. Here's your spot. Like, we're just waiting for you to join us. And then we'll see how the rest of the pieces fall into place. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Warm Weather Fans, including TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, the whole shebang-a-bang. It is me. I am on X or whatever at Watch the Stone. We'll be back next week to preview 2 more Sunbelt teams. This has been another edition of Warm Weather Fans.